The first thing I saw that morning wasn't the sunrise. It was a dripping streak of white paint sliding down the red stripe of my American flag. And the woman holding the paintbrush? Patricia Hendress, the self-proclaimed president of our neighborhood HOA. My blood ran cold before it boiled. You see, that flag wasn't just fabric. It had been folded against my chest when I came home from deployment, the same one my unit carried through 2 tours overseas. I raised it every morning as a reminder of the friends who didn't make it back. And now, this woman, with her pastel cardigan and fake smile, was trying to redecorate it. "Ma'am, step away from the flag," I said, voice steady but low. Patricia barely glanced at me. "This flag violates the community aesthetic," she replied, dipping her brush again. "We maintain neutral tones in this subdivision. Red, white, and blue clash with our earth palette." I laughed, because if I didn't, I might have shouted. "This isn't your wall, Patricia. It's federal property protection. You don't touch a U.S. flag." She rolled her eyes. "You veterans think you're above the rules. This neighborhood has standards." I stepped closer. "That flag has standards too. Men and women died for them." The tension snapped when she dropped her brush, splattering another white smear across the blue field. My hands clenched. I wanted to grab that brush, that paint can, and throw them both across the yard. Instead, I took a photo, then another, then one of her license plate as she huffed back to her car. By noon, I'd filed a report with the sheriff and sent a copy to the HOA board. Patricia thought she could bully me with her clipboard and bylaws. She didn't realize I'd spent a lifetime dealing with worse than a suburban tyrant. That evening, as I scrubbed the flag clean, neighbors began stopping by. Some nodded silently. Others offered to help. One man muttered, "She's been going after everyone lately. Mailboxes, fences, even kids' bikes." That's when I realized this wasn't just about a flag. It was about someone who thought she could rewrite the rules of respect and ownership, and I wasn't going to let her. Because when someone tries to paint over what you stand for, you don't back down. You repaint your flag brighter. And Patricia was about to learn exactly what happens when you mess with a veteran's pride. 2 days after the incident, I received a letter hand-delivered by Patricia herself. The envelope was stamped with the HOA's cheap logo and the words, "Mandatory Hearing Notice." She stood there, chin raised like a general inspecting troops. "You're being cited for violation of community appearance standards," she announced, lips tight. "Your flag display is non-compliant." I stared at her. "You vandalized my flag, and I'm the one getting cited?" She smiled. That smug, bureaucratic smile only a petty tyrant can perfect. "We all must follow the same rules, Mr. Walker. Even veterans." Then she turned on her heels and strutted away like she'd just served a court summons from heaven itself. The meeting was set for Thursday night in the HOA's rented conference room. I showed up in my old service jacket. Not to make a scene, but to remind them who they were dealing with. Inside, Patricia sat at the center of a folding table lined with board members who looked more nervous than authoritative. She opened the session with her trademark condescension. "We're here to discuss the non-compliant display at Mr. Walker's residence." "The flag in question," I interrupted. "You mean the United States flag protected under the freedom to display the American flag? Act of 2005? The one that makes your so-called rule null and void?" A hush fell over the room. Patricia's lips twitched. "That act doesn't apply here. This is private property." One of the board members, a man named Greg, cleared his throat. "Actually, Patricia, it does. We can't prohibit a homeowner from displaying the American flag." Her glare could have melted steel. "Greg, please don't interrupt." I placed a printed copy of the federal law on the table. Page 2, paragraph 4. It states, "No homeowners association may restrict the display of the United States flag." "You crossed that line when you vandalized mine." Murmurs spread across the room. Greg leaned forward. "Is that true, Patricia? Did you actually paint over his flag?" She tried to backpedal. "I was performing maintenance. The colors were faded." "Maintenance with white paint?" I asked. You're lucky I didn't press vandalism charges." Patricia's face turned red. She grabbed her notes and abruptly adjourned the meeting. "We'll revisit this next week," she snapped. But I could tell. She wasn't done. She was embarrassed, cornered, and furious. And people like her? They don't lick their wounds quietly. That's when I realized Patricia was about to strike back. It started small, almost petty. The next morning, I woke up to find a bright orange notice taped to my garage door. "Grass exceeds HOA height standards," it read. My lawn was trimmed just 2 days ago. I smiled. So this was how she wanted to play. By the end of the week, I'd received 3 more violations. Unauthorized exterior light fixture, improper mailbox color, and my personal favorite, unapproved decorative element, referring to the little wooden eagle I'd carved years ago and set by my porch. Patricia was weaponizing the HOA handbook like it was her personal constitution. Neighbors began whispering. Some avoided me, afraid they'd be her next target. Others quietly offered support. Old Mrs. Holloway across the street slipped me a note that said, "Don't give in. She's done this before." That night, I decided I wasn't going to sit back and take it. I documented everything, every false citation, every photo of my violations, every email. Patricia sent dripping with authority she didn't have. By day 4, I had a full dossier of her harassment. Then came the moment that crossed the line. I came home from a supply run and saw her in my yard again. Clipboard in one hand, phone in the other, snapping pictures of my truck. She didn't even flinch when she saw me. "Documenting another violation?" I asked, walking toward her. "Parking a commercial vehicle in a residential driveway," she replied, smug as ever. "That commercial vehicle is my truck, Patricia, the one I used overseas to serve this country. It's got plates, insurance, and a flag decal, not a company logo." She folded her arms. "We'll let the board decide." "Good," I said, pulling out my phone. "Because I'll let the county sheriff decide about your trespassing." Her confidence faltered for just a second. Then she muttered something about enforcing standards and stomped away. But I knew this wasn't over. That evening, I got a call from Greg, the board member who'd defended me. "She's losing control," he said quietly. "She's been pushing her own rules without board approval. And now people are starting to complain. A lot." I smiled. "Then it's time someone reminded her who actually runs this neighborhood." Because if Patricia wanted a war over a flag, she was about to find out what real discipline looked like. The next HOA meeting would be her final stand. And I planned to end this once and for all. By the night of the next HOA meeting, the air in that little community room was thick with tension. Word had spread, not just about Patricia's vendetta against me, but about her history of bullying nearly everyone on the block. For the first time, the rows of folding chairs were packed. People came with files, photos, and, most importantly, stories. I walked in carrying my folded flag in a shadow box, cleaned, restored, and shining. It wasn't just a symbol anymore. It was evidence. Patricia sat at the head of the table, flipping through her binder, pretending not to notice the crowd. But she couldn't ignore the low murmurs. When I placed the flag box in front of her, the room went silent. "This," I began, "is what you tried to paint over. You called it a violation. I call it my oath." Her jaw tightened. "Mr. Walker, this meeting is about your repeated non-compliance." "Actually," Greg interrupted, sliding a folder forward, "this meeting is about your conduct, Patricia." She blinked. "Excuse me?" Greg opened the folder. "We've received 15 formal complaints against you in the past month. Unauthorized fines, false citations, harassment. You've overstepped every boundary. An HOA president has." A wave of nods followed from the audience. Neighbors who'd once been silent now spoke up. A man describing how she'd fined him for a fence post color. A woman who said Patricia threatened to tow her car over a missing parking decal. I stood and faced the crowd. She tried to paint over a flag that represents freedom and the right of every one of us to live without petty tyranny. Patricia slammed her hand on the table. "This is mutiny. "You can't remove me." Greg raised his voice. "Actually, according to the bylaws, we can. And we just voted." The board members nodded. The decision was unanimous. Patricia's face drained of color. She gathered her papers, glared at me one last time, and stormed out, her heels clacking like a retreating drumbeat. When the door closed, the room exhaled. Someone started clapping, then another. Soon the whole place was cheering. I looked at that flag, still bright under the fluorescent lights, and smiled. The next morning, I raised it again. The same flag, on the same pole, right where it belonged. The paint stain was gone, but the memory wasn't. It stood as a quiet reminder that freedom doesn't just live on battlefields. It lives in front yards, too. And as the flag caught the morning wind, I whispered to myself, "Still flying. Always will." What would you have done if this happened to you? Tell me in the comments, and make sure to like and subscribe for the next wild HOA story.